On this episode, we will be talking about none other than the Orlando Magic.
Orlando, play the song.
Orlando Magic, Orlando Magic.
Welcome back to another episode of the Bench Mob ENT podcast. We have a special episode. Y'all know the series. How well do you know your team? We have Bryce Bachelder. I believe I said it right.
Close. Bachelder.
Bachelder.
You know?
There we go.
Antonio, we just spent the last 45 minutes coaching you how to say my name. Come on, man. Gosh.
I do apologize. As y'all know, I'm just trying to get the reps in. I'm trying to get better each and every day. So everybody make mistakes here and there. You feel me? So I'm on a 10-day trying to make it up to the big league right now. So I do apologize. On this episode, we will be talking about none other than the Orlando Magic.
Orlando, play the song.
Before we even get into where they at this season, the trivia, any of those things, and little special one for y'all, this episode is different. He's going to give us the biggest what ifs in Orlando Magic history. So definitely I want to tune in for that. We're going to end off the show with that. So that means you got to watch. You got to watch to the end because he's going to drop some gems. Starting off, where did your fandom start for the Orlando Magic? How did this happen?
Yeah, not in a logical way at all. So I am not from Florida. The furthest south I've ever lived is Salem, Massachusetts. All right, like I'm from Vermont, born in Vermont, live in Vermont. I live 2 miles from Canada. All right, so I like to claim the title as the northernmost Magic fan. But it started when I was a kid. Shaq and Penny era. And I have family who live down in the Orlando area. So, they'd send us Magic t-shirts, hats, stuff like that for Christmas and birthdays. Shaq and Penny were the best. And even though I was a huge Michael Jordan fan and a huge, loved those Bulls teams back then, I would play basketball on this little toy hoop in my parents' basement. And I made up this whole story that I was the best player ever, but I got to be on a team. Right. And out of respect for Michael Jordan, I won't be on the Chicago Bulls. And so I'm going to pretend to be on the Orlando Magic and play with Shaq and Penny and Dennis Scott and Horace Grant and just did that as a youngin'. And unfortunately, the reality of my basketball skills did not match what I sort of had in my head. But that's sort of how I got into them in middle school. They signed McGrady. And so that's when I really went all in. T-Mac is still my favorite Magic player ever. They made the finals when I was in college, those Dwight Howard teams. And then, became a bona fide adult with a job and got myself league pass, but right after the Dwight Howard era. So I just subjected myself to a decade of terrible Orlando Magic basketball. I love you, Vooch. I miss you. But it's finally the basketball gods are maybe smiling upon us. If anyone can ever get healthy, then they'll smile upon us. But that's where we are. Love them.
I got a similar story too in that regard. I'm in Jersey. Yeah. Never been out west, but I'm a Lakers fan. It's kind of I was born into it. First pair of Pampers were Lakers Pampers, so I just was. I didn't even know that was a thing back then, but Pop somehow found Lakers Pampers.
But at least Lakers were this cultural brand, right? Who in Franklin County, Vermont is shopping for Orlando Magic gear, right? And I will say I'm a Boston sports fan for everything else. Love the Pats, love the Bruins. The Celtics are my second favorite team because I used to live in the Boston area and I love the city. But I've met maybe one other Magic fan up here in my life. So yeah,
that's very rare because you're definitely in Celtics city, Celtics county, Celtics area,
but mainly hockey area. I'm just this is hockey town right here. A lot of I live an hour and a half from Montreal, so a whole lot of Montreal, but we border New York. We're part of New England, so we just got kind of all three markets going on all at the same. And then it's just me and my wife married into it, and I'm raising my kids, and we're holding that Orlando flag up here in our little corner.
Hopefully it all goes out planned as you have it set up. Now with the season so far, right? You mentioned the basketball gods. If they could just get healthy before all of the injuries, I loved what I saw. I still think personally, Jamal Mosley has to be in the conversation for Coach of the Year. The fact that they are 24-24, the 7th seed, only a half game back from not being in the play-in for Miami, which we know they're probably going to lose some games with this old Jimmy Butler saga. How are you feeling at this point of the season with all the injuries to still be 24-24 in the mix of everything?
Yeah, hold on. I gotta prepare myself for answering this one. Two things from Vermont that I had to represent: beer and then also flannel. I really thought about should I wear a jersey, but I'm like, no, I'm just gonna wear a flannel in the Magic's color. But Jamal Mosley, I think he absolutely should get some attention for Coach of the Year. The most recent stretch that they've had is not gonna help his case. But the team's still not healthy, right? I know Paulo and Franz are back. They're still not healthy. Like Goga just got back. Suggs is out again with a different injury. Now I think a thigh injury. So it's we're still, this has been the whole season, and I'm at this point I'm completely numb to the injuries, right? Like Paulo got injured, and it's like our season's done, and I was throwing up the white flag. And then Franz was amazing, and then he got injured. It's like I'm back to just throwing up the white flag, like crying on the ground. But then like Suggs and Cole Anthony stepped up, and then Suggs got hurt, and Gary Harris and Jonathan Isaac and Goga, and now it's just like, oh, of course they're hurt, because that's just what happens this year. So I'm hoping I honestly think in this last stretch of games with Paulo and Franz back, and they're still kind of struggling, and I'm glad they're back. They're obviously who we should be building the team around and the focal point. I actually think that the key to Magic winning games are healthy Suggs and Goga together. That's the defense, right? Someone down low and Goga, a shot blocker. We all know how tenacious Jalen Suggs is on the defensive side. So like we need those two guys back and fully healthy. And then I think we'll be able to kind of start to get some rhythm and make a run here. The question is, some guys are going to have to go to the bench and not get as much run. So that's, we'll have to, but it seems like a tight team. But we'll have to see kind of how that goes.
Yeah. Again, it's like Jamal Mosley, the job he's doing to be able to have, you're calling the 14th, 15th player off of your bench, and they're ready to play.
The G League team.
And they're ready to play. And they come in and make an immediate impact.
Shout out Traveling Queen.
Yeah, because most situations with the injuries that y'all have faced, only halfway through the season, most teams would be in a position like, hey, Cooper, you interested?
Yep, absolutely. And we always talk about the next man up mentality. The Magic absolutely have that, but in order to have that mentality, you got to have a team full of players with absolute buy-in to the vision of where this team is going, and that all starts with the coach. And Jamal Mosley has instilled that in them. It's a culture of guys who genuinely seem to love playing with each other and being with each other and being on a team together, no matter what their roles are, right? I mean, Cole Anthony is a great example because, he really struggled at the beginning of the season. He was out of the rotation, basically. And then injuries, he's just kind of stepped right in. And he's had some good games. He's had some not so good games, but like he's ready to go. And all the players see him as a leader, right? And And that all starts with the coaching. So, I mean, the culture Jamal Mosley has kind of put in a big refresher from some other coaches that we've had in the past.
Most definitely for you, right? What do you think is possible as the ceiling for this team this season? Like dream scenario situation. What happens for the Magic this year?
Yeah, I mean, fully healthy, I think they're sort of a dark horse team in the East. Again, they just haven't been fully healthy. I think it's really dependent on the Bucks, the Knicks, the Celtics. I mean, I guess the Cavs are starting to slip, but I think when fully healthy, when they're all and burning together, they're a dark horse team. Their absolute ceiling is probably take the Celtics to 6 or 7 games in the conference finals. More realistically, at this point, I'm kind of just hoping that they get to the second round, right? But I know for sure that they're a team that no one wants to see in the playoffs, no matter what seed they end up in, because the Magic's defense is just going to make whatever team they play have to work ridiculously hard for all 48 minutes because the Magic just do not take time off defensively.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that because we literally talked about it on last week. So my co-host, one is a Knicks fan, one is a Nets fan, but he likes to poke fun at the Knicks. So he asked him, you think in the playoffs, if y'all see Orlando, y'all gonna beat them? Of course, the Knicks fans like, yeah, without a doubt. We both was like, pump the brakes on that. pump the brakes on that, because if they're healthy, because right now they aren't.
Yeah.
What you would hope is by the end of the season, the last 10, 15 games, everybody's healthy, you get your groove back, the chemistry is flowing again, playing your best ball, heading to the playoffs. I don't know if New York wants that. There's not a lot of teams that would really match up with Orlando well. 7-game series with that defense, and then Franz and Paolo as 2 players that can go get you a bucket in playoff times.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sad that the Mo Wagner ACL injury has taken away sort of a burgeoning Mo versus Cat rivalry, because they were getting into it in the couple games that we played when Mo was healthy. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think the 2 teams that match up the best for the Magic, probably Boston and Cleveland. And other than that, whether it's the Knicks, the Bucks, the Pacers, whatever, the Magic are going to give them fits. And I think, for the Knicks, you're going to have both Brunson and Cat just kind of both having fantastic games all in the same game, every game, right? To kind of overcome the defensive pressure that the Magic put on. But it's going to be big. It would be big for Cat because one of the things the Magic do really well is just run people off the 3-point line, which means Cat's going to have to go to work down low. So, yeah, I mean, they're a dark horse. I'm not going to make any guarantees because, man, my sights were so high at the start of the season, and then just like everything has been thrown at us, and everything the entire season has defied expectations. So I'm just along for the ride. Being an Orlando Magic fan this year, the only way to describe it is just it's been an experience. And that's it.
Most definitely, and like you said, it's exceeded expectations literally every point of the season. And that goes to show you also it's a long season. So definitely will be tuned in, because the second half of the season after All-Star break, we don't know. They might go on a 8-game win streak, a 5-game win streak, and it could really change the whole landscape. Like it's a lot of basketball left, and some trades going to happen. So
yeah, I
mean, the NBA's about to be shaken up in the next couple weeks.
And we'll see if the Magic end up making any moves. I go back and forth whether I want them to or not, because like we desperately need some outside shooting. We're the worst 3-point shooting team in the league, but at the same time, like the vibes. Who are you really going to get rid of? I mean, maybe Gary Harris, maybe Cole Anthony, but like the vibe. That's like what's driving this team. So I don't know. We'll see.
complete sidebar, was not on the docket, but I know you
Mhm.
have a good knowledge on basketball. Before we started the show, Adam Silver came out and said, because you just mentioned a good point of 48 minutes of basketball with the Orlando Magic play. Are you a fan of Adam Silver throwing out the idea that they need to shorten the game to 10-minute quarters to have a 40-minute game?
Nah. They got to speed the game up in other ways. Like lengthwise, a 2.5-hour game is, I think, too long. It's not. I don't think that it's the number of minutes in the quarter. The two biggest rule changes I'd love to see is that both teams only get one timeout in the final 2 minutes, because nothing grinds a great game to a halt than play, timeout, play, review, play, right? Like, this is where FIBA just has it figured out a lot better. So one timeout in the last 2 minutes, and then the other is just in terms of reviews. I'd love for them to do the old NFL rules where it was a time limit for the referees to look. That refs get 45 seconds to a minute to look at a play, and if they can't definitively say that it's overturned, then call stands, keep things moving. They got to play some Secaucus. Like, why aren't they just making the clock decisions? Like, how much time should be on the clock? Like, referees at the game should not be looking at that. So, like, 45 seconds to look at the play. If they can't make the decision in that amount of time, call stands, keep things moving. That's what's going to speed up the game.
Yeah, Adam Silver, he mentioned that of the point of, like, he would want it to be more so of a 2-hour game experience. But I agree with you in saying I don't think that's the answer of, all right, we need 10-minute quarters. No. I like some of the ideas you threw out. I think we'll see in the offseason. They'll make some changes. They'll have some conversations. I don't think the players would agree with it either. So I don't think it happens, but I think it was just interesting that he threw it out there.
Yeah.
And it was funny. He was talking to Dan Patrick, and Dan Patrick told him, well, you're the commissioner. Can't you, just kind of make it happen? And he was like, we would have to go through regulations and this, that, and the third. So I think once he talks to everybody else, they'll be like, Adam.
Yeah.
That's
So,
not
I
it.
mean, like 48 minutes is already a shorter amount of playing time than most other professional sports, right? Like hockey and football are 60 minutes. Soccer is 90 minutes plus stoppage time. You're really gonna like go from short to even shorter, So I don't know.
Yeah, we'll see what happens, man. They're definitely gonna have some conversations this summer about the product, and they've been talking about it all year about ratings and all of the sorts.
Yeah.
So summertime, they'll definitely have conversations. We're on to the next part, which is the trivia aspect, Magic trivia.
Okay.
First one we have. What did the Magic? I said what? Wow. Who did the Magic face in their first finals appearance?
Houston Rockets.
Starting off 1-for-1.
They've only made the finals twice, so it's sort of a 50-50. So, Rockets and Lakers. And I also want to tell you, I intentionally did not do any studying for this, just because I want to see what random useless Orlando Magic trivia that I just happen to have in my head that's like never going to be of any use anywhere else. So, yeah.
It's funny you said that, because I don't know if you heard of this app called Sporkle. I legit do just trivia on different teams. Let me see if I know who led the Charlotte Hornets in 3-point percentage in the 1985-86 season. Never going to use it. Unless I end up on Jeopardy somewhere and they have that as a category. I don't know. I'm different.
Yeah.
I don't have like games on my phone. That's my game. I do sports trivia. Like, weird.
It's great. I swear my wife regularly thinks like, why do you know this?
We have that conversation very often, me and my wife. Why do you know this, Antonio? Like, what purpose did that serve? So we're in the same boat on that one.
All right, right on.
The first Magic player with 5 triple-doubles in a season was Penny Hardaway, Hedo Turkoglu, or Elfrid Payton.
Oh boy, this is one I don't know off the top of my head. I'm gonna go Penny.
Actually, it was
Better not be Alfred
Alfred.
Payton.
It was
Oh
Alfred
man,
Payton.
I even thought about it, but gosh, Alfred Payton. Oh man.
Yes, the first. He was the obviously Penny had triple doubles, but he was the first player to have 5 in a
5 in a
season.
season.
Yeah. Shout out to Alfred Payton. He had a good 3 games this year, and then got cut.
I'll just say if you ever want to see a roster full of just guys you have not thought about in a long time, go on Basketball Reference and just look up an Orlando Magic roster from like 2013 to 2020, and you will just see a bunch of guys.
Most definitely, it was a lot going on during that time. Most wins.
Was there a lot? Was there a lot?
roster construction, roster movement.
Yeah.
Roster movement. Most wins in a single season: 54, 59, or 60.
59.
59. They did it twice, but actually it was 60. It was the 60 wins. That was
that one of the Dwight Howard teams? Was that 2010?
No, the 60 was actually one of the Shaq teams. The 59 back-to-back was the Dwight Howard teams that won 59 wins back-to-back seasons.
Got it.
Which, that sucked that Dwight got injured. Because me as a Lakers fan, I think if they had one or more 2 pieces, they was going to beat the Lakers. But it just
screw you, man. No,
I really like the Dwight Howard Orlando team.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, those were great teams. I'll tell you, like the amount of PTSD that Magic fans have of just star centers going to LA. That like Shaq left for LA almost 30 years ago at this point, and I like just brought myself to buy his jersey, and I'm like just getting back into like good grace with Shaq, and like Dwight Howard still has a long way to go for me. Although like those were great teams, and Dwight Howard should have made the top 75 team over Anthony Davis.
As a Laker fan, I'm agreeing with that 1,000%.
People don't understand Prime Dwight.
Prime Dwight was really a problem.
Most dominant big man in the league for years.
Look, check out Basketball Reference and just look at the stat lines he was putting up. Absolute domination. Most turnovers in a single season is 317. It is a two-way tie. It was a two-way tie between Dwight Howard and who?
I'm gonna say Jameer Nelson.
Jameer was top 5, but it was actually Steve Francis.
Oh, that checks out. Yep. That's not surprising.
In the 2000 NBA draft, the Magic had the number 5 overall pick. Who did they select? Was it Chris Mim, Mateen Cleaves, or Mike Miller?
Mike Miller.
Yes, it was
Mike. He won Rookie of the Year that year.
Yes, it was Mike Miller. Last question we got before we go into the biggest what ifs in Magic history, which I'm excited for. I didn't have to go do the research for that one, so I'm excited to just sit back and listen.
And me neither, because I just have this random Magic knowledge in my head. Except for these trivia questions, apparently.
I wonder, you talk about random knowledge. I wonder if you're going to, when we get to that list, I wonder if you're going to bring up the one that just came to my mind. Because I want to ask you about that, being that you are a Magic fan. But last one we have, who was Penny Hardaway traded for?
Oh, he's traded to Phoenix.
Oh, maybe I should clarify. In regards of the draft, 1993 draft.
Oh, Chris Webber.
Yes. I was like, hold on. Let me clarify because you talking about Phoenix. That's a completely
That was after Shaq left.
yeah.
He was breaking down. Okay.
That might have been a better question because that might have been harder. But yeah, Chris Webber. But hey, the floor is yours. The ball is in your court. The biggest what ifs in Orlando Magic history. Bryce, take it away.
So, first is the what if you just thought about what if they kept Chris Webber?
No,
Is that what you were gonna? No, okay, all right. So I have the top 5, in my opinion, top 5 Orlando Magic what ifs ever. You'd be surprised the ripple effects that these would have across the whole league and some players' legacies. First, I'll just say honorable mention to what if Nick Anderson hits the free throws in Game 1 of the Finals, and also what if Courtney Lee makes the layup at the end of Game 2 of the Finals. So honorable mention to those. So I'm going to go from least impactful to most impactful what ifs.
Okay.
So number 5, the least impactful on my list. What if the Orlando Magic hadn't traded the draft rights to Domantas Sabonis? So they had the draft rights, Domantas Sabonis, and there's, the idea of, Sabonis would have been like a nice piece on that team. Still doesn't like really raise the ceiling all that much, but the Magic trade the draft rights to Sabonis and Victor Oladipo, who they had drafted a few years before, to Oklahoma City for, do you remember who it was for?
Nah.
Serge Ibaka.
Oh, I remember.
Yeah. So, and our GM at the time, Rob Hennigan, used to be the assistant GM in OKC under Sam Presti. And so we get Serge Ibaka, and man, let me tell you, we were stoked. We're like, we finally traded for a star, Serge Ibaka. And then we quickly figured out why he was the 4th option behind Durant, Westbrook, and Harden on those Thunder teams. Also, that we already had Vooch and Bismack Biyombo, and just Aaron Gordon, where is this guy going to fit? So what ended up happening is that he stayed on the team for half the season, and he was traded at the trade deadline to Toronto for Terrence Ross and a worse pick than what we had sent to OKC for Serge Ibaka. And so, but here's the real quick kicker, right? Like I said, there's the what if of what if Domantas Sabonis and Victor Oladipo just stay on the team together? Oladipo ends up being really good in Indiana. Maybe we just weren't using him right. Here's the real kicker. Both of them play one season in OKC, and the next offseason, Sam Presti trades Victor Oladipo and Domantas Sabonis to the Pacers for Paul George. And so my what if is, wait, these guys were worth Paul George? What if the Magic just made that move? What if Paul George just came to the Magic, right? And so that's kind of the bigger, kicker for that one, is that these 2 guys end up being worth Paul George, and that's just the whole story. That's the Rob Hennigan era all summed up. Number 4. What if Markelle Fultz hadn't torn his ACL? And here's why this is significant. And this goes back to actually the season before, when Jonathan Isaac got hurt. Which Jonathan Isaac at the time, legitimate contender for Defensive Player of the Year, defensive savant. He was unbelievable in the 2019 season. Hyperextends his knee against Washington. He's out for a long time. The only reason he comes back in the same season, or I guess it'd be the 2020 season, is because they do the bubble. And so they take months off, and it gives him time to recover. Plays in the bubble. Second game in the bubble, tears his ACL. He's out for 2 years, right? So the next season, it's still the Vooch, Aaron Gordon, Evan Fournier team, and Markelle Fultz, the point guard. Fultz tears his ACL. And that, I think, is when the Magic front office decided it's time to tear this thing down and trade everybody out. And so Vooch goes at the deadline, Gordon goes at the deadline, Fournier goes at the deadline. Didn't really get anything for Fournier, but Gordon, we get Gary Harris, That's the return in that one. Gary Harris and Bull, who lasted like a season, maybe with the Magic. Obviously, the bigger return is Vooch to Chicago. We got Wendell Carter Jr. and the 8th pick, which becomes Franz Wagner. And we also had our own pick, the 4th pick, which was Jalen Suggs. And so, we're bad. And then we get the number 1 pick, and that's Paulo Banchero. So here's the what if about this. If Markelle Fultz doesn't tear his ACL, I think they keep just running with that team again, which the ceiling is like the 8th seed, the 7th or 8th seed. And so if that doesn't happen, could I still be rooting for an 8th seed Vooch Aaron Gordon team instead of a Paulo Franz Suggs team that are like dark horse Eastern Conference team, but obviously has a much higher ceiling than what they were before. So that's number 4. Now we're going to get into the good ones here. Number 3, what if Grant Hill stayed healthy? That Magic team, they signed Tracy McGrady and they signed Grant Hill in the offseason. The rest of the roster is built around having 2 stars. And people forget, like, Grant Hill, folks often think about role player in Phoenix and Clippers. Detroit Grant Hill, this is not hyperbole when I say this. I'm completely serious. He was the next Michael Jordan. He was that good. He was unbelievable. And the Magic signed him as a free agent to pair him up with Tracy McGrady. The rest of that roster was trash. And so when Grant Hill was injured for 7 straight years, it was McGrady, and his second option was like Mike Miller. And then after we traded him, it was like Drew Gooden and Gordon Giricek. Right? So, like, if Grant Hill stays healthy, they become Eastern Conference contenders, right? And so, the question is, like, are they beating those Detroit teams, those New Jersey teams, those Indiana teams, right in the mix there? I can't guarantee that they would have absolutely beaten any of them, but like they absolutely would have gotten out of the first round. They would have had a real chance at having some finals appearances. So what if Grant Hill stays healthy? That totally changes Tracy McGrady's legacy too. He probably doesn't go to Houston. He probably stays in Orlando.
Most definitely. I like that one.
Yeah. So number 2, and this one's related. What if the Magic had been successful in also signing Tim Duncan?
That's the one.
That's the one. This one is absolutely a game changer for the league. And so for those who don't know the story, watching or listening, the Magic tried to build a big 3 that offseason. They signed McGrady, they signed Grant Hill. The story is they were this close to signing Tim Duncan. Duncan asked Doc Rivers, who was the coach of the Magic at the time, if his family could fly on the team plane sometimes. And Doc Rivers said no. And San Antonio said yes. So he went back to San Antonio. Doc Rivers has said on Bill Simmons' podcast that story is not true, but other players on other podcasts have said that story is true. So I don't know. But that's the thing, though. Like, if Duncan comes to the Magic, I think they are suddenly the Eastern Conference's best team. Hands down. Like, I think they beat those New Jersey, Detroit, Indiana teams, those, Paul Pierce and Antoine Walker Celtics teams. Could they get over the Lakers sort of in the middle of their three-peat run? I don't know. But that certainly takes the Spurs off the board for their 2005 championship. I think it completely changes Tim Duncan's legacy, right? Because that means no 03, 07, or 2014 championship for the Spurs. Does he still win the same number of championships? I don't know, but I can say I think after the Shaq Kobe Lakers are out of the way, I think the Magic got a few titles in them, right? If that trio had actually happened, and also assuming Grant Hill stays healthy.
Hey, even if Grant wasn't healthy, T-Mac and Tim Duncan is
Oh yeah,
light years ahead. Like you mentioned, what that
greatest
roster
power forward
was,
ever.
what that roster T-Mac had to
Yep.
deal with in Orlando. But if you have Timmy with that,
Yeah, yeah.
game changer.
Popovich probably still isn't still coaching the Spurs.
Probably.
Probably. All right. Number one. You're gonna love this as a Lakers fan. What if Shaq stayed?
I've thought about that.
Number one what if in Orlando Magic history. And look, I don't think they immediately win titles because you still have the second Bulls three-peat, right? So I don't think they're getting over that. But after that three-peat's out of the way, there's obviously no Shaq and Kobe Lakers. And so I think they got a lot more runway to try to go chase some championships. So, for me, it changes the legacy of, Penny, because he might have a couple championships. It changes the legacy for Shaq because does he still end up with 4 rings, right? And the one that I think it dramatically changes the legacy for is actually Kobe Bryant. Because Kobe, 5 rings, respect for him. I think he's a top 10 player ever. He was not the best player on those 3 championship teams in the early 2000s. Shaq was. So Kobe probably doesn't get those 3. He might still get, the 2 later ones. But I think that dramatically changes what Kobe's legacy is if Shaq decides to stay in Orlando. So those are my top 5 biggest Orlando Magic what ifs.
That's too funny because 2 of those, I have some videos in the tuck working on to be posted with a series of what ifs. And those 2 are on the list because I often think about, especially as a Lakers fan, if Shaq never came, Kobe maybe starts the scoring binge early, and we're seeing his 3rd or 4th year 50-point games, and he as his 5th year he had an 81-point game. We probably see, I think, that earlier, and hopefully you see later on Gasol buying him. Phil Jackson comes, has the kumbaya come to Jesus moment of, hey, you don't have to shoot it 85 times to go win. Trust your teammates. Yeah. So ultimately, he'll probably still get some rings, but as many,
sure, absolutely.
I don't think so, and I agree with you 1,000%. Shaq in that era was the most dominant, and I still think all time one of the most dominant, immovable forces. So you stay in Orlando with Penny, who was way less of a personality clash than Kobe. I don't see why not. That's
and Shaq is the kind of guy that man, I really wished he had taken the end of his career more seriously, because I think he could have been a top 10 player all time. It's just he didn't take care of his body, and when it broke down, what was the famous quote? I got hurt on company time. I'm going to recover on company time, right? So, which if I made that many millions of dollars, I'd go one contract in the NBA and then retire and just be good for life. But just as a fan of basketball, he's someone that I really wished had taken the end of his career a lot more seriously than he did. Because we also got a whole generation of people who just saw him as Celtics Shaq and Cavs Shaq, who was just old and overweight and couldn't move.
Phoenix Suns, he had a run of just going through a bunch of different teams, having a bunch of little nicknames, the Shaq this and all. It was entertaining, but like you said, that's a what if right there. Marketing genius. That's a what if right there too. What if Shaq did actually take his career, the entirety of his career, serious on the aspect of being healthy, doing the work off the court, all those different things that him and Kobe clashed about.
Yeah.
Shoot, maybe if he did that, maybe he doesn't leave LA and they have their own Jordan type 6 rings.
Yeah.
I think it was all dependent on Shaq. Shaq was the immovable force that nobody could stop. It was
They really couldn't. There's no answer to him. There's no answer to him.
absolute crazy numbers. Absolute too strong. Orlando when he was running the floor like that, like yeah.
Do you have a random trivia question for you? Do you know how many career 3-pointers Shaq made?
I think it had to be under 10. Probably was like 6.
1.
I knew he made one in Orlando.
Yeah.
I was trying to give him the benefit of the doubt.
You can confirm you did not miss any in LA or Miami or Phoenix or Cleveland or Boston. Just the one in Orlando.
Because I remember the one in Orlando, and I'm like, maybe he hit a couple more. I know it wasn't more than 10, so let's go under that. Dang, it really was the only one in Orlando.
Just one.
Sheesh. Wow. That's and because I always remember he was All-Star game. He do his little dribble. And...
Oh yeah, it's the best. Yeah, Antonio, why didn't you ask me that trivia question? I would have nailed that one. My percentage would have been way better.
Just getting the reps in, trying to get out of this 10-day contract.
I'll do the research for my own trivia questions that you have to ask me. Yeah, that's a good honest show.
Yeah. Oh man. But again, thank you for hopping on, taking time out your schedule.
Thanks, man. It's a lot of fun.
Do you know your team this episode? This is probably, I think, one of the most fun episodes because he brought something new to the episode. The biggest what ifs in Orlando Magic history. For those that's watching and listening, I know you're gonna love it. Make sure you hit the subscribe button, share, like, comment, and of course, I'll put it in the description. Check him out on Threads. A lot of good conversation on there, and he talks more than the Orlando Magic on NBA Threads. So, if you're not a Magic fan, still give him a follow. It's not going to be just Magic information on there.
And I'll throw out there, I do some power rankings on Mondays. I used to do them for a local sports show around here. Decided to throw them up on Threads, just fun. They're called my totally subjective 100% amateur hour power rankings. So, but just to say, like, just come talk ball with me. It's just fun. So that's what we're all on NBA Threads for. Antonio, I'll also just say, like, great idea with the podcast doing this series. I've listened to multiple of them, a lot of fun. So props to you for coming up with it.
Hey, appreciate you for hopping on, giving a great episode. Y'all know the vibes here on the Bench Mob. If you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. We out. Peace.